On a cold February night in 1991, 78-year-old Lucille Johnson was brutally murdered in her Salt Lake City home. There was no forced entry, no clear motive, and for decades, there was no suspect. The killer left behind something bizarre, something that didn't belong in the home of an elderly woman who lived alone. Scattered across the floor, just inches from Lucille's body, were a handful of children's building blocks. For 23 years, those blocks sat in an evidence locker, a silent witness to a nightmare. But there was one microscopic detail the original investigators missed, a detail that would eventually link a grandmother's murder to a monster hiding in plain sight. Lucille Johnson was the neighbor everyone loved. Kind, predictable, safe. On February 2, 1991, her daughter pulled into the driveway after Lucille failed to answer her phone. The front door was unlocked, the lights were on, but the silence inside the house was deafening. Lucille was found in the living room. The struggle had been violent. The room was a graveyard of overturned furniture, but as the lead detective knelt down, his eyes settled on the Legos. Lucille didn't have grandchildren who visited that week. She didn't own toys, so why were they there? Police followed every lead. They interviewed neighbors and delivery drivers, but every trail ended in a cul-de-sac. The Legos were bagged. The fingernail scrapings from Lucille's final struggle were put into vials. And then the trail went dark. For 20 years, the evidence room held the secret. Everything changed in 2013 when a cold case detective decided to open Box 442. In 2013, forensics had evolved. The Legos weren't just plastic toys anymore. They were touch DNA gold mines. Investigators sent the blocks and the fingernail scrapings to the state lab. The results came back, and the name that popped up on the monitor sent a chill through the department. John Paul Rogers. At the time of the murder, Rogers lived just a few blocks away. But there was a darker layer to this evidence. Rogers had a young son who, in 1991, played with the exact type of Legos found at the crime scene. The theory: Rogers allegedly brought his son along to the murder, or the toys were stuck in his pockets during the struggle. The DNA on the blocks didn't just match Rogers, it matched the DNA found under Lucille's fingernails. She had fought for her life, and in doing so, she had captured her killer's identity. John Paul Rogers was already in prison for another crime when the charges were filed. He maintained his innocence, but the evidence spoke louder than his denials. In 2014, more than 2 decades later, a jury found him guilty of first-degree murder. The man who thought he had committed the perfect crime was undone by a child's toy. The evidence room reminds us that no matter how much time passes, the truth has a way of surfacing. A tiny piece of plastic became the key to a cell door. This case relies on the smallest piece of evidence imaginable. Do you believe the Legos were brought there intentionally, or were they a careless mistake? Let me know your theories in the comments. And if you want to step back into the evidence room, hit subscribe.